Hey, Arcturus here. Today, we're looking at a Case Club miniature storage case. This is a foam inset case, mostly for miniature storage, though Case Club does make a few other things. I picked this up because I needed some transport and storage options, and since it can hold 134 of them in quite a large case here, I thought this might be a good option. Now, for D&D miniatures, it works quite well. You have your miniature, the base fits in here. It's slightly larger than the rest of the pocket for the miniature. You have a couple different sizing options. So let me pull out another segment here. So you have two pieces of foam that come in this, a larger cube, and then you can either take out both pieces to get the full sized, or you can take out and separate the foam and slide in this half insert. And then you have a smaller hole for a better fit for miniatures. Now I got this case because it has room for some of the larger miniatures. So I'll take out this piece of foam, set it out of the way. So here we have a beholder miniature, and I've squished it in there with some of the other pieces of foam because it was just smaller than this segment. Now this level comes, so you could have it for the smaller miniatures using the same style as before, but then the interior between the four slots is actually removable. And you can cut this foam quite easily as well. So if you only had one that needed to be cut here, you could do that. Or if you had a really tall miniature, you could cut along that line as well. However, one thing I've found is that a lot of the Games Workshop miniatures don't fit very well in this case. And that's because the miniatures are actually taller than the slot would allow for. So, for instance, here we have an Inquisitor. I think it's Savina Wren. I'm not entirely sure that's correct, or Win or something. And so we'll definitely have to take out this smaller insert. But if she didn't have this dragon or wyvern creature, she would fit just fine. But when you go in to put in the wyvern, she doesn't fit very well at all. If I rotate her so the wyvern's sticking out, with the 32mm base, she does fit, but it catches here on this segment sticking out. Now for D&D miniatures, like we have here, it's not a problem. They aren't quite as large as these are. But for instance, some of the other 40K miniatures, or Games Workshop miniatures, right? This one, which is one of the Eskurgan Trueblades, you could make this fit, though I'd definitely rotate him a bit so his blade is a little more in the foam, but it still sticks out because he overhangs the base so much. For instance, if we look here from the bottom of the miniature, we can see with his weapons, he's actually more on a 40 or 50mm base than on the 32 his torso fits on. So for a easier view, here we have one of the Solar Auxilla command squad. And even though his arm points out and he's got a little bit sticking out, he fits well enough. You could definitely rotate him because this will fit in another foam case. You would have it that way, and that would be fine. You would probably want to put the insert in. Slide that in. He's a smaller miniature, so then he's very well nestled there into the foam and safe for transport. And some extension out is okay, especially on like an arm where it's not too delicate. But the wings on this guy just are too big to really fit, and I'd be worried about damaging them. What I suspect will work better are the old world miniatures. Now their base will fit like that, but if you rotate them 90 degrees, they fit nice and nestled, and then you would only need to cut off the top of this to shorten up the size there, which is good to know. Now I do have plenty of old world miniatures, so this would be a decent option. This would probably also work really well for Skaven. See, does he fit that way well? Yes, and he doesn't even stick out of the side there, or if he does, it's very little. Even this D&D miniature sticks out a little bit more. So it would work for some of those. Now, if you were going to do that, with full-sized armies, other carrying cases are probably better, but it depends on where you're going. If you had to fly somewhere and move your collection, this might be a good option. Now, a lot of the promo material using Games Workshop stuff in these is Space Marines, and the Space Marines do seem to fit quite well as opposed to some of the other ones. And it's really going to depend on the miniatures. So I tried this with a friend's Thousand Suns, and they don't fit very well at all because they have all those spiky bits. I suspect Death Guard and other Chaos miniatures would be the same, though I don't have some of those to try, unfortunately. And so I bet the best bet for some of these would be either Imperial Guard or similar sized miniatures, anything on 25s. Actually, I have some Tau here on the desk so we can see how those fit. So here we have a Tau Pathfinder, which fits pretty much just fine. You'd probably want to rotate it just a little bit so it's in there, maybe more like that. So, and some of it depends on where you put the base and everything, or how you put it on the base. You put it gun in. Yeah, there we go. So, you know, some miniatures it will work fine with. Excessively spiky miniatures, so a lot of Games Workshop Chaos line would probably not fit very well in this case. You'd probably be better looking at a different storage option. If you had a bunch of minifigures and you wanted to have them all stored inside a single place, or if you're looking to pick up minifigures and want something to carry them home so they're not scratching against each other, this might be a good option. If you have a lot of D&D miniatures, this would definitely be a pretty good option, I think. And you can always cut some of the foam too. So if you have something that's slightly larger, you can always just get a hobby knife, and of course being careful not to cut yourself, cut through some of this foam and just pull it out. It's pretty easily modifiable if you're interested in that. Well, that's all I have for you today. I will see you next time.